Hey, what's up, Breaking Points? I'm sure you are all missing Saagar during his week away in Paris. Well, I've got some good news for you. We are continuing to post clips of the Realignment onto the Breaking Points channel. Today's clip is an excerpt from our episode of Josh Kaplan and Kinsey Grant of Thinking is Cool and Smooth Ops. It's a debate about whether or not billionaires should or shouldn't exist. It's a really interesting debate here. We're kind of taking it from a different perspective. Would love to hear what people think in the comments. I am definitely going to be there. Whether that's a good thing or not is up for a whole other episode and a whole other debate. But do you think that we have an issue with our public policy system? Do we think there's a big wealth inequality problem? What about innovation? What about moving things forward of big inventions that are powered by people like Elon Musk? Who knows? It's a great debate. Definitely comment below and check out the rest of the episode that you can subscribe to at our Realignment channel. Also available as a podcast located below as well too. Let's get into it. We're here to promote co-founder Discord. So Josh, you referenced it. Let's get into the Billionaires debate so we could hit a bit of the content you're having. So Kinsey, let's start with you. What is your perspective on Billionaires, which also frankly it's interesting coming from the Morning Brew business background, and even before Morning Brew too, right? You're basically, a lot of your interviews are with billionaires. We've spoken to a lot of billionaires. So let's just get your take on Billionaires and the broader debate. Then Josh, please come in and hopefully clash a bit. We love clash here.
Oh, we definitely clash on this one. This has been a fun one to report out. So it is my personal belief as Kinsey Grant, journalist and not billionaire, that it should not be possible for billionaires to accumulate the kind of wealth that they have in the United States at this point. I understand that there are arguments in favor of the existence of billionaires. And when I say the existence of billionaires, I mean the possibility of becoming a billionaire, not that, Bill Gates should go to the fiery gates of hell, right? Like this is what I mean. To me, those arguments are not as strong as the idea that wealth inequality in the United States is going to be the pressing problem of this generation. There are obviously several pressing problems of this generation, but I think that is the foremost right now. And to me, the existence of somebody to accumulate $170 billion in net worth is completely backwards. And that is allowed to happen because of legislative decisions, in the tax code, right? Like these decisions that are being made by people who aren't billionaires themselves, they are being made in favor of these people who can accumulate this kind of wealth. We do not have a wealth tax. We have an income tax. And it is painfully obvious that the mega wealthy in the United States have deployed tools that everyday people simply do not have access to grow their wealth in a way that we could never dream of. So it's my belief that they should not exist. But I know that I can see Josh trumping at the bit to come in and try to prove me wrong.
And the quick thing we need to add here, Kinsey, as you pointed out, Kinsey Grant, journalist, non-billionaire. I'm going to guess that Josh Kaplan, aspiring billionaire. So let's just hit that editorial and let's hear your perspective.
I'm okay with that. And we'll do a little roll call. Kinsey Grant, are you a capitalist?
Yes, I believe in some of the core tenets of capitalism.
Marshall?
Yeah.
Saagar?
100%.
All right, so we're all capitalists here. We all believe in the system. I think there's a lot of discourse around different systems right now. But I agree with you on a lot of the points that wealth inequality is going to be one of the defining problems of our generation. I don't agree on capping ambition. And I think one of the best parts about what we've done, and she puts her head back and rolls her eyes.
Come on.
There are certain things that we very much agree on. This is not just binary on the conversation around should they exist. I think that they should be allowed to exist, but the means of becoming one should be significantly harder. Mm-hmm. I was taught in school that we have a progressive tax system. We clearly do not, right? By whatever loopholes or laws or legislation, it is regressive, and the richer you get, the less you pay in taxes. And I don't like that. So there's certain things that I completely agree with you on. The ways that a lot of these people become billionaires then becomes outlawed a couple of years later. A lot of these rules are changing, but they're not changing fast enough. So I think we do need better legislation, better protections over wealth inequality, and ways to make sure that everybody has access to education and healthcare and infrastructure and everything. But to lead with the narrative that in America you have a certain ceiling on your wealth, I just can't get behind that from a talking point. I think on a lot of the logistics that you suggested in the episode, I'm fully with you. There is one that might lead to another interesting conversation about the wealth tax, that it's really, really hard from a logistics standpoint to tax wealth rather than income.
It actually could also be unconstitutional. I've actually heard that before.
There you go. So I just, there's a lot of interesting parts to it. Yeah, go for it.
No, I've had this argument with Crystal many times, so I'll throw my stock answer here, which is that, and I'm curious for your perspective on this, Kinsey. I actually think looking at Bezos or Musk, the extreme outliers, is really the wrong way to do it. Because in a way, that's kind of what you want. Jeff Bezos created the Everything Store. The Everything Store is one of the most brilliant. Look, I'm not a shill for Amazon. I have a lot of critiques of Amazon. They're anti-union busting. I think all that, I've talked about it ad nauseum. That being said, it's a really good idea. Elon Musk, SpaceX, cool. Tesla, cool. The problem I have is that I was looking at the Forbes list of 2020. The most common way to become a billionaire today is not to actually create an innovative company. It's to basically act as a leech on the financial system by payment for order flow, hedge funds, all sorts of just like financial inefficiencies, which private equity, as far as I can tell, these people are not adding any value to the American economy. I mean, I'm sure they would have plenty of counters in the Wall Street Journal editorial page, but I'm saying from what I think, I don't think that those types of billionaires should exist necessarily. Somebody like Ken Griffin. Whereas if you're creating like hard science product, or if you are creating like actually Amazon is a good idea. Creating Amazon, I think that's perfectly fine. So that's my addition to the discourse. I'm curious what you guys think.
I think it's a really, really well-made point, and one that I take well too. I think part of the reason that we love to dunk on Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos in particular is because they're easy to. Like, it's easy to punch up and say, do you have any idea how vast the number $170 billion is? Most people simply do not. And so to use that as a point to illustrate just how different their life is from yours, I think is often a useful point in discourse, right? But I completely agree that the more problematic wealth accumulation in the United States today isn't those people. Sure, they have a ton of it, but that's not the vast amount of wealth. And it almost brings up this idea of, and I've heard this before, I think Josh has brought it up to me before as well. If you cap the amount of wealth that somebody can accumulate in a specific country, are you capping the amount of innovation that will flow into that country, or rather will come from that country, will flow out of that country? I don't think that you are, if you give people the chance to understand where this money actually is, right? I'm not going to be any less inclined to create a life-changing drug, right? Or to, I don't know, create a viral podcast because I think it's going to make me a 99 millionaire instead of a billionaire. That to me is not going to deter me from innovating if that is what I'm drawn to do. Are you innovating because you want to become worth $3 billion? Or are you innovating because there is a reason, there's a need in the market, and you have to meet that need specifically with your skill set?
So this is interesting, though, because maybe the question at hand is, who are we talking about, right? So the individual inventor, the individual business person, maybe that's not what motivating them. But if we're talking about like venture capital, what's definitely motivating a venture capitalist to actually invest in a serious hard tech product like SpaceX, like a Tesla, it's the idea that you're going to get a 10x, aka $1 billion plus return. If you are a hedge fund or a university that's trying to put your funds into something that funds those venture firms, you want to see that too. So I think it's important to focus on the individual actors. But I think the most important thing that we're all agreeing on here, and this is where I'm curious, we'll get into this later, like lessons we've learned from podcasting. Something I've learned is that we should really look at what people are actually saying. And I think what people are actually saying when they're talking about billionaires is something we all agree on, which is that there's a lot of unfairness in the system. And if being a billionaire is a stand-in for, like Saagar said, financialization, or the two of you said for like using the legislative process to affect things in an unfair way, that's what people tend to really be talking about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that the interesting part of creating this specific episode of Thinking is Cool was hearing from so many people. I thought that I might be in the minority. And granted, I have like a decently young millennial liberal audience, but I thought that I would be more in the minority in saying, I don't think that this should happen, or I don't think that we should have a system that encourages this to happen regularly. A lot of people agreed with me. Like a lot of people who I was not expecting to agreed with me. Unsurprisingly, though, a lot of people who disagreed with me were the kinds of people who bought in like hook, line, and sinker to the grind your way to the top, the American dream, like pick yourself up by your bootstraps, because that's what they've been sold. That's what's been forced down our throats from age like 6, right? As soon as you can read, you hear about the American dream. And that's just not the reality for so many people. And it's been interesting to hear the perspectives of people who completely disagree with any sort of like wealth tax, any sort of wealth inequality conversation they're not interested in having. It's often because of this rhetoric that has been given to them, handed to them. And that's, at the end of the day, whose fault is that? Perhaps it's the media. Like that's the bigger question. What's our responsibility in all of this?